what people fail to understand in kind of high pressure business situations, particularly, is that you have so much more control than you think, because what you give off, you get back.
Welcome to the Phase 4 podcast, inspired by Vishen Lakiani and Ajit Nawalkar, co-founders of EverCoach, a division of Vine Valley. In this podcast, we speak to coaches and creatives about where they were, where they are, and where they are going. This is the intersection of what we focus on expands, and your story is your superpower. My guest today is Nicole Greenfield-Smith. She's also known as the Mindset Master. She's a keynote speaker, a behavior, confidence, and communication expert, and she's passionate about helping women to break through to the next level of business so they can believe, achieve, and receive in abundance. Nicole, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, definitely grateful. I love your story. I love what you're doing. And I always kind of begin with just tell us a little bit more about yourself and how did you end up in this space?
Yeah, I spent years working in advertising. So for 2 decades, that was my passion. I spent years working in advertising research specifically. So I would delve into how people behave and what drives them, what makes them tick, in an effort to really understand kind of how to better reach them. And it was fascinating. Absolutely loved it. But the problem for me was I came from a very different background to most of the people in the environment that I was in. So I was very working class. I hadn't been privately educated. I didn't go skiing in the winter. I didn't have a lot of those shared reference points that a lot of my colleagues had. So from the moment I stepped into that industry, I felt like an imposter. And I ended up massively trying to change myself to fit in with what I thought acceptable looked like within that environment. And it just really meant that I lost all connection with myself. Like I lost that deep level of trust that I had in myself before I started working in that industry. And it wasn't until a conference, oddly, so I did a lot of public speaking. And on the face of it, everyone would say, "Oh, you're so confident. Like, how do you do that? I could never do what you do." But honestly, what I projected on the outside and what was going on in the inside were two very, very different things. I was literally an anxious mess. My poor husband would have to put up with me for days before I had to go and present. It was just awful. And it wasn't until this one pivotal moment where I was behind stage with one of my industry idols, waiting to go on. I just said, "Oh, goodness, I wish I could do this like you do this." And he turned around and he said to me, "I'm going to let you into a secret. I hate it." I was like, "You too?" And I realized at that point, I thought, oh my God, like there's probably loads of people who feel like this. It's probably not just me. And with the background I had in understanding human behavior and behavioral science and communication, I thought, you know what? Actually, the one person who's going to change this for me is me. And I taught myself up and I started training people in public speaking, and but from a mindset first perspective rather than just what they were doing on stage. And it made such a difference. And it was that moment I thought, you know what? There's something in this. I want to do this myself. And that was the catalyst for everything, because it was so satisfying. And I know what a difference it makes.
That's awesome. So I got a couple of questions for that. The first one is, do you still have that fear, anxiety before you speak?
Not to the same degree at all. I love it. And actually, once I'd done the work, I really began to enjoy it because I trusted myself that whatever happened, I was going to be okay. You know, even if things went wrong on stage, which they regularly did, even if I forgot what I was going to say, I just trusted myself that I'd be okay. And that allowed me for the first time to really kind of find my groove and get into it. And now it's one of my absolute favorite things to do. I love it. But I cannot describe like the turnaround where I was before to there. So yeah, I love it now. And I know that other people can too, you know, once they master those mindset skills first.
Yeah, that's powerful, because I know for sure, myself included, a lot of speakers, I still get it. I try to reframe it as It's not fear, it's excitement that it's important to me. The imposter is because I need to get to that next level. But for the imposter syndrome part specifically, how would you guide somebody through that to grow and to just accept it almost?
Yeah, I think part of imposter syndrome is understanding your conditioning. So you only ever feel like an imposter if you feel like you stand out for some fundamental reason. And if you feel that the reason you stand out, for whatever reason, makes you unworthy or lacking in some respect. So imposter syndrome is all about rewiring that perception you have on yourself and understanding the expectations that you've been shaped with, where they've come from, and what you actually want instead. Because as we all know, that conditioning often doesn't update. It doesn't sit with what your ambitions are in life. So you've got this idea that you're one thing, you want to achieve something else. But the problem is mindset and confidence are always going to be that invisible glass ceiling because you can only ever go as far as your confidence allows. So this is where people come unstuck. They tool themselves up with knowledge, trying to prove their worth. But actually what's sitting underneath it is way deeper than that. And that's always where imposter syndrome starts. It's that conditioning and how you feel about yourself. If you can get over that, you realize actually it doesn't matter. And your strengths are the things that you perceived as being weakness before, which I love.
Wow, the opposites, right? There's a bit of it in there. So your strength, you can find it in your weakness, in your fear, in your anxiety, any of those things. So I guess we're kind of leaning into communication. And I guess maybe for women, right? You're working more with women. What are some of the biggest communication pitfalls that hold women back in business today?
In terms of communication, again, generally, it always starts with mindset. So the thing I'm obsessed with, the thing I love more than anything is helping people to perform at their peak and realize their talents because everyone has talents within them. And the only reason you're ever going to fulfill those talents is if you're able to perform at your peak and kind of do your best work. The problem with communication is we generally tend to think it's what we put out there. We will think it's the body language and our stance and, how we relate to other people and the pace of our words and all these different things. And absolutely it is, right? Because that's what other people connect with. But each of those things, again, start with what's sitting underneath. So if you are doubting yourself, it's going to show up in every single thing you say and do. You can kind of fake it to a degree, but you can't make it, right? Based on a dodgy foundation. And a lot of the things that typically reveal people's insecurities or disconnect them from the people they're speaking to is typically they're failing to listen and to truly understand what's happening because they're off in their own head having a little conversation with themselves. Oh my God, what if people think I'm stupid? What if I forget? Oh no, did I really just say that? That inner narrative that's constantly going on. If you think about how it feels when you've got two people talking to you at the same time, so, you can't focus, you can't perform at your peak. And yet all too often when we're communicating with other people in business scenarios, that inner dialogue is running rampant in the background. And you can't communicate effectively in that circumstance. So that's one of them. And the second one is how you carry yourself, because your body language, again, is reflective of how you feel in any given situation. So if you're doubting yourself, if you're not feeling confident, it's going to show up in how you hold yourself. And we've got these beautiful things called mirror neurons. And they enable us to connect with other people and to mirror what we see. So it's why when you go into a room, everyone will be sitting in the same position. They're all mirroring one another because it's that subconscious way of connecting with other people. What people fail to understand in kind of high pressure business situations particularly is that you have so much more control than you think, because what you give off, you get back all the time. It's like a virtuous circle. So if you're feeling unconfident, but you can project confidence to other people, they're going to nod and smile along at you, and that's going to help you feel better in yourself. And then it kind of just works like that. Everything feeds everything else. Whereas if you're doubting yourself, you're feeling nervous, you're like, oh no, that's going to show up in how you communicate and other people will respond accordingly. So the two biggest things are that they're not listening because of things going on in your own head or trying to think about what you're going to say. And the second thing is what you're feeling inside being reflected back at you in what you get from other people.
Yeah, I love this. So I'm a mentor in Toastmasters. I'm a mentor,
Right.
and one of the things I do is tell people like nobody knows what you're thinking because sometimes, like you're saying, right? We think it, we feel it, and then we start to project it. But nobody knows. You don't have to tell them this is my first time speaking, or oh, I wasn't supposed to say that, or if you show the face, right? It's like little kids. If you watch little kids playing soccer or something and they step just over the line out of bounds, the referee might not even notice, but the kid will stop playing and it's like, okay, I see what's happening. But I think that's huge. So the listening skills is obviously the most important. That's for coaching, where we are doing here is like the number one thing, right? A lot of times I find in just normal, not coaching conversations, just conversations around whatever with the kids, dance, soccer, parents, family, community, that the other person's not actually listening. They're just waiting to respond. And so they might hear the first sentence, think about what they're going to say to respond, and then they miss the whole rest of the conversation.
Exactly that. Exactly that. It is the number one thing that will hold people back. And particularly when you are a peak performer and a high achiever, doesn't matter who you are, where you've come from, does not matter. But when you're a high achiever and a peak performer, often you will feel the pressure to go into situations and lead. And in order to lead, you think you have to show your authority, you have to show your expertise, you have to position yourself as being the person that has the answers. The minute you go in and do that, you close yourself off, right? You close yourself off and you create pressure. And it's one of the biggest things that gets in the way of fluid communication because it stops you creating that rapport with the people that you're speaking to. And so I always say, the thing to do is to go into a situation, regardless of what you're doing, with a level of curiosity, because the more you learn about someone else, the more you know how to speak to them, the more you know what their little traits are, the more you get an idea of what it is they're hoping to get out of the situation, the more you can mirror back to them what they're projecting. It's such a powerful skill. And actually, when I train mindset and confidence mentors, which is a big part of my business, it is one of the things we spend more time on than anything else. And it's one of the things that people find incredibly challenging because you're constantly thinking, what am I going to say next? When am I going to get that word in? It's the fastest way to shut down communication.
Yeah. And if you spend 30, 40, 50 years doing it that way, it's really difficult to change. So I could see how it might be difficult for people. There's a book called Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek. I don't know how to say his name, but Leaders Eat Last. And he just talks about this, like that the idea is you don't have to always speak, or you don't have to lead from the front. You can just watch and help everyone else. The best leaders we find are just people who kind of delegate to their places. You know what to do for sales promotions, go do it. You know what to do for products, go do it, right? And so the best way sometimes to lead is from the back. Mirror neurons, you gave a really good example. I always give a good example that the baby, when you're feeding a baby and you go, ah, then the baby copies you. Ah, it's because of mirror neurons. So I love that idea. I think, let's see. So confidence, we got the part about peak performance. We got a bit about body language, but let's cultivate confidence. So what does that look like? And how can we start to build it?
Confidence I find fascinating because a lot of people think it's woolly and it's intangible. And I can tell you now, as someone who's worked in this area for a long time, it absolutely isn't. Confidence ultimately comprises of two things, as far as I see it. So this maybe doesn't match the dictionary definition, but in practice, when I'm working with people, when I'm helping them hit the next level of their talents and achieve different things, it's always about two things. And that is having the belief in yourself to turn all those amazing thoughts and ideas that you have in your head into some kind of positive, tangible, and consistent action, right? You can't think yourself into confidence. Neither can you just do something and expect to be confident at it. As I kind of highlighted, after years of presenting, I still didn't feel it on the inside. It's always got to be that combination of those two different factors. So the mindset and also the action. And so whenever you're working with someone on confidence, the biggest thing to understand is, firstly, where are the gaps for them? What are the things that aren't resonating? Because often people will go to the thing that feels like it's the easiest and most obvious thing to fix. So, as per the example of public speaking, I will go and I'll do a public speaking course, and they'll help me to position my body language and to do this and to use my voice more effectively. Brilliant. But it's not getting to the heart of the problem if ultimately you've got fear of public speaking. It's not going to make that go away. So the impact's always going to be limited depending on which bit of that you hit first. So for some people, they will be able to project a level of confidence, but they don't feel it on the inside, which is the imposter syndrome. And then for other people, maybe they can talk the talk, not feeling it on the inside, but actually others aren't able to project. So I also have clients, who are incredibly confident in their abilities. They know what they're doing. They're brilliant, but actually their ability to connect and communicate that to other people means that they're often kind of at workhorse level doing the work without getting the glory. And this is it. It's always this kind of double aspect thing. You've got to be working on both parts of confidence at the same time, or at least hitting the one that is your biggest challenge first.
Yeah, that's nice. I'm thinking when you're doing there about strengths and weaknesses, and everybody has their own way and style of dealing with this, but I wonder, do you work on one of them more than the other? Do you lean into one of them more than the other? And do you try to obviously you want to get all of them as better than you can, but is there one more than the other?
Yeah, absolutely. You always have to have a starting point. And for most people, if say I were to ask you the question now, what do you feel more confident with? Either projecting and communicating and putting yourself out there, or do you feel more confident kind of your inner sense of self and your belief and your trust in yourself and your self-worth? If you were to score yourself out of 10 for those two things, would it be the same number for both of them, or would one be higher than the other?
Yeah, for me personally, the second one would be a higher score.
Yeah. Exactly. And that is how it works for most people, actually. Most people will have a gap between those two scores. It's very rarely the same. And what you will often find is the inner confidence. So how you feel about yourself, the stuff that no one else sees necessarily, is the one that feels weaker. And always, always that is the place to start. Because if you build the other side up and the mindset doesn't match, you are just fueling imposter syndrome. And this is where I spend a lot of time as a coach on doing the work of bad bosses and other people and mentors who haven't quite appreciated that situation. So a lot of my clients, for example, were on businesses. They've, invested thousands in amazing coaches, like amazing business coaches who get fantastic results for their clients. And for whatever reason, it doesn't work for them. And so they think, oh my goodness, the problem is me. The problem is I'm just not good enough. I can't do this. But actually, they were trying to execute a strategy without having the underlying foundations to be able to do it in terms of the mindset to put themselves out there and take the action and do all those things. And so that just kind of fuels the fire almost, is more harmful than good. So for virtually everyone, it has to start with the mindset first, because if you don't get that right, everything else is going to feel wobbly on top of it, no matter what you do.
Sure. We hear this all the time. Mindset matters. Mindset is everything, this kind of thing. And I think Ed Milet says something where, like, you don't have to believe what I'm saying. You just have to believe that I believe what I'm saying. Where, like, he's on the stage and he's projecting that energy that you're talking about. It's going out of him, whether you believe what he's saying or not. He's confident, and then it comes back, and then you're like, oh, maybe he's right, even if he's not. I think you talk about believe, achieve, and receive. So what does that look like in a real world practice for women, especially women who are lacking in that kind of a confidence, who come to you to help you get to the next level?
Yeah, I mean, I'm passionate about every single person finding their talent, because when you find your talent, you get that sense of achievement, right? And it is the most wonderful feeling. You get the happy hormones, the dopamine, the serotonin. You get all the neurotransmitters firing that help you to rewire your brain to say, I've got this, I can do it. And that is a powerful thing. So when it comes to believe, achieve, receive, it literally goes in that order. Because unless you can have that self-belief, again, because confidence has two parts, you're not going to put in the action to create that sense of achievement. And achievement requires action. It always requires action. So to get those positive feelings, yeah, you've kind of got to put yourself out there. You've got to try new things. You've got to work on your mastery. You've got to do stuff that, I hate saying that, puts you out your comfort zone, because actually I think that concept is incredibly flawed, but it's conventional wisdom that everyone follows. It's flawed from a neurological sense, but it's literally about doing those things that allow you to feel those brain chemicals that give you that sense of achievement, because they are one of the most powerful motivators known to humankind. They literally alter your brain. They alter how you feel in your body. They alter your physiology as well. Yeah. So they're powerful and potent. And actually what we want to be able to do is to use those, because with achievement often comes reward, right? So whether it be financial in business, whether it be achieving something that you've set your heart on, whether it be becoming an expert in your field that people turn to, that look to for advice, becoming trusted, being respected for what you do, that level of achievement can only come off the back of believing, and all of those things need to work together in order for you to get to the rewards.
I love it. So there's a model of positive psychology called PERMA. And it's the buffer kind of against depression or anxiety, but it's just an acronym, but it's positive emotions, engagement, relationship, meaning, and achievement. All the things that your BAR acronym, believe, achieve, and receive, talks about. And I have an acronym that kind of goes with yours that I use all the time called BIAS. And I think everyone needs to have a little bias in their life. And it stands for belief, intention, action, surrender. And if you can line up all four of those, then that's a game changer.
Yeah, I mean, I love the surrender part of that as well, because
Hardest part.
it is the hardest part, isn't it? Because, particularly if you're feeling insecure, and if you want to control the elements around you to minimize the risk. And this is the thing that happens when you become an expert, when you become super confident, when you develop your talents, is your perception of risk fundamentally alters. And it's a beautiful thing to witness in people, because if you're not feeling those things, then even the smallest steps can sometimes feel like they might end in disaster or doom. Your brain goes off and those thoughts spiral, and it stops you from taking action. But when you get to that level of mastery and expertise, when you get to that place where you deeply trust yourself, you know that actually, even if it does go wrong, I'll deal with it. And you know that any progress is still progress, even if it's only 10% of the progress you wanted to make in the first place. You're still 10% further ahead than you were before. And that is such a positive thing, because it enables you to surrender to that outcome. So what? So what if it doesn't all work out? I'll make the best of it.
All right, so go and rewind that last 30 seconds. And if you feel that and that resonates with you, that's how you know you've arrived at accepting that failure doesn't mean you didn't do it. Failure is just a part of the process, right? It has to be. There's no other way.
There is no other way. And we all want to feel like we're good at things, right? We all want to feel that we've put effort in and that effort is rewarded. But a huge proportion of putting effort into anything, and learning in particular, is about you working out what's gone wrong and why, so you can change things for next time. And as someone who spent, decades working in research and understanding people and behavior, the projects I loved were the ones where we didn't just find out what we expected we'd find out, because then you don't really know necessarily why you've got the results you've got. When things go wrong, you can deconstruct and you can tweak and you can change and you can improve. It's like the most valuable thing. But because there's this kind of inbuilt fear of failure in a lot of us, because we don't want to be rejected or criticized, it stops you from making that progress. And again, it's like constantly lowering your own glass ceiling all the time when you aren't able to trust yourself to deal with things not going the way that you initially hoped.
Yeah. Failure is like one step closer to your goal. Ed Sheeran, I don't know if you've seen this clip. He talks about, he's like, we don't learn anything from success. And for exactly the reason you just said, right? You might have got it worked out and you got it right, but you might not have done that on purpose, or it just worked out, right? It doesn't always work out. But when you fail, you can go back. Okay, this is what I did wrong. I just tried to run a marathon. About 3 weeks ago, I tried to run a marathon. I started off way too fast. And about halfway through, I just fell apart, right? I go back and look at the times and I'm like, oh, that's where it is. Okay, so the next time I got to take this, I got to go slower at this part. And now I know for the next time what to do. But if I don't have that, or if I don't use that data, it's just like, I don't know. As we begin to wind down, if this episode resonates with you, please like, subscribe, share, and reach out to Nicole. Obviously, you can see from this conversation how passionate she is. Sounds like she's done the work. She has lots of experience, and she can help take you to the next level. So maybe without naming any names, do you have a particular story that comes to mind about a client a success story or something like that?
I do. Actually, it's really pertinent because it happened last week. So, I don't work with them anymore. So they're a previous client. They got to a point where, they're just absolutely flying. And I got a message last week that made me so happy because this client came to me, what would have been, where are we now? So it would have been 2.5 years ago, in bits, I think is the best way of putting it. So had worked for a startup, been hired obviously to direct a small department within this startup within marketing. And literally the environment was so toxic. And it was a he, by the way. I largely work with women, but I don't always work with women. But this guy basically had been subjected to the most toxic environment full of bullying and blame. And over the course of a few years, it had just taken his confidence from being up here down to zero. And he had absolutely no idea what he was going to do. So we kind of started working right at that point. And that was a really extreme example because most people I work with, they're on their way, right? They're looking to get to that next level of performance and get that edge. But in this case, it started off with us working through his values. What are you passionate about? What you believe in? Why is this not sitting with what you believe in and who you are? And we deconstructed that. And from that moment, two amazing things happened. The first was that he realized, firstly, that he wasn't really cut out for working for someone else, but his mind was so far away from that. He's like, no, I'm not an entrepreneurial type of person. I cannot do that. That's not on my radar. So I'm going to have to pick somewhere that kind of fulfills my values of autonomy and all these things, but working for someone else. Like, okay, we'll let that sit. And the second thing was he had a passion for doing something. I don't want to say what the industry is because I don't want to identify him outright because it's very niche, but he had a passion for doing something almost that sat at odds within his industry that was so far removed from what was the norm that it just seemed like a crazy, wild idea. I can't possibly do that. It's crazy and wild. So over the course of the next few sessions together, firstly, he realized, actually, you know what? Maybe I could start a business in this. And then over the following 2 years, not only did he launch a business, create an entire new niche within that business, he's just last week got angel investment. And it's like it was a message that just warmed my heart because I
That's
thought,
why you do it, right?
yeah,
The thing, why we do it.
exactly that. And part of it is always going to be about passion and purpose. If you've got a passion and a reason to do something, then the mindset is the bit that follows. If you've got no motivation to do it, it's really difficult to work on your mindset and make those improvements.
No doubt. There's a book, Art of Impossible by Stephen Kotler, and he talks about it. And you've been talking about it the whole time. So his book is called A Primer for Peak Performance. But he says, you need to have passion, and you already have it. You don't need to go get it. You need to uncover it and remember what it is. Curiosity and that childlike attitude where you don't know everything. You walk into the room, you don't want to be the smartest person in the room. You want to be asking questions and learning new things. And he said, combining all of these things is the beginning of moving towards your purpose. You'd said about that client and how they're at odds in the job where it's conflicting. So inside this person, this is what he loves, this is what he wants, but also this is what he's doing and this is what's happening. So inside there has to be this conflicting attitude or this conflicting ideology inside, which doesn't help with confidence or anything else. But then also, I wonder how does toxic workplace or workplace burnout play into all of this?
Oh, I'm working actually with several clients on that at the moment, literally as we speak, because you can have the strongest mindset in the world. You can have all the skills and capability. You can be respected by other people. You can have done it all. But if you take all of that and you put it in an environment that does not suit you for whatever reason, doesn't matter whether it's toxic, it could just be that, I know, maybe you're autistic and you're in a busy environment with noise all over. I'm using this because this really affects my son. You know, with noise and you're sensorily overwhelmed, you're not going to do your best work. You're not going to perform at your best. And so the environment that you're in is always going to be the facilitator that enables you to perform at your peak. And so that's one of the things that you really have to work hard to influence and to control as much as you can, because it's one of the things that generally gets swept under the table because we think we can't control it. But actually, there are always going to be adjustments you can make to any environment to make it fit for you. But if ultimately the values of the environment you're in do not fit with your own values, that's a massive mismatch. And it doesn't matter what you do in that circumstance, you're never going to feel comfortable in your head. And there's always going to be that subconscious tension because your subconscious mind is going, this isn't you, this isn't right. And so the best thing to do in those situations, get on out.
All right. So the environment controls the gene. So we're born with a certain set of genes, but you can upregulate and downregulate according to your environment. So we're talking right now about workplace and the environment, but it also goes further than that. It can go at home. If you're sitting there watching the news or even just have it on the background for hours, that's hitting you without you even noticing, right? It's almost depressing. Anytime I go to the dentist, they have this TV on the top and it's always on the news. I'm like, turn it off. And I'm not saying, I'm not saying like, don't get the news, but try to get it in like 5 minutes or something, or just read the headlines and whatever jumps out. Just the environment, right? Same with music. The easiest one, your car radio or even just any radio, right? If you go and you put on like heavy metal and then rock and roll and then country and reggae, all of these are going to make your body feel totally different. And so that's just a one little example about that. I believe as we wind down, if this episode resonates with you, please like, subscribe, share. I think I already said that. So I'm going to ask you, this is the Phase 4 podcast, and Phase 4 in the 6-phase meditation by Vishen Lakhiani. It's all about creating your future 3 years out. So where is Nicole Greenfield-Smith 3 years from today?
Oh, that's an interesting question, isn't it? Oh, so 3 years from today, I will have my book out already. So I'm in the midst of working on a book. We're going through an editing at the moment. So the book will be out there. What I would love to have done is taken that around the world. I would love to be standing on stages and talking about talent, because the book is all about how to use your brain and your body and everything at your disposal, including things like music, for example, and art, you know, as you were just saying, they change your mood and your brain chemistry, to really enable you to perform at your peak and zone in on your talent so you can feel like you're accomplishing something. So for me, that will be the talent that I want to put out there and accomplish within 3 years' time. And hopefully I'll be working on the second book by then as well. I would also love to be training more mindset and confidence mentors. So that's something that I started last year. I have a CPD certified program called The Leap, which literally gives people the skills they need in whatever way they support other people. So I've had PTs, business coaches, consultants, trainers, book editors. That's how I met my book editor. Lots of different kinds of people going through that to work out how best to support other people in terms of building confidence and mindset. Because as someone who supports others, your results are already intertwined with theirs, right? If they don't get results, it's going to hit how you feel about yourself. So I would love to have taken that out and be training a network of people who can then train other people to do the same, so that more and more of us have a real solid understanding of how mindset and confidence actually work and the impact that it has and how we can change our lives by changing our minds.
I love it. Thank you. That's really awesome. And I look forward to those books. You talked earlier about comfort zone, and there's a neurological deficiency against stretching yourself. I would love to know more about that.
Yeah. I mean, it is the conventional wisdom, isn't it? Well, you must leap outside your comfort zone. You know, every single day, get out your comfort zone. And a bit of me, as someone who spent years working in psychology and neuroscience, dies inside every time I hear it, because On the face of it, it's good advice, right? And it makes sense. But actually, in practice, it holds people back because, let's be honest, who wants to spend their life being uncomfortable? Nobody. Your whole brain, your physiology, your nervous system is wired to be stable, to be predictable, to be comfortable. Right? So every single time you're fighting that, you're fighting yourself and you're fighting your brain wiring. So I prefer to take a completely different strategy with my clients, and that is to help them build their confidence zone instead. And that is to be really strategic about it. So you look at what is it that you really want to achieve? Like the question you just set me, what do you want to achieve in 3 years' time? Have you got what it takes to get there? If you haven't, what do you need? Okay. Invariably, there'll be a whole load of things that sit outside of someone's comfort zone, because if they were in there, they would have already achieved it, right? So you have a look and you prioritize. Okay, right. So which is the one that's going to make the biggest difference in the shortest amount of time? And how achievable does that feel? Which feels miles away, but which is kind of just on the edge, just on the edge. And what you do is you zone in those things that are just on the edge, because actually from your brain's perspective, it's not too horrendous. It's not a massive risk. If you take a huge leap, you're not going to fall in the water and drown. You know, it's more like moving from one stepping stone to another. So you feel safe, right? And this is what this is all about. The more safe you feel, the more likely you are to repeat something. If something feels like a huge, scary risk, chances of you repeatedly doing it over and over again are relatively slim. So you build yourself up, like running a marathon. You run marathons. You don't just put your shoes on and try and run 26 miles. You start off, little. You build a habit. You make that habit become automatic, so your shoes are just there. You get out, you can do it. And it's those little things that lead to the big achievements. And that's exactly how I feel about comfort zones. You don't want to be leaping outside of them. You just want to be growing your confidence zone instead. And if you can do that, you are wiring your brain. And that is a powerful thing.
Yeah, I use a saying, I always say, go low, go slow, and grow.
Exactly that.
All right. So I have maybe 2 more questions. I guess one of them is that I always let the guests take it wherever they want. So like if you have something to sell it, a message of hope, inspiration, courage, or if you want to mix it all together, just take it away.
Where do I start with that one? Well, I would start by saying every single person, doesn't matter what base you start from. I'm ADHD, for example. I work with a lot of neurodivergent clients. A lot of us entrepreneurs are, aren't we? Work with a lot of neurodivergent clients. And the thing to know is that wherever your starting base, there is always, always room for improvement, right? Doesn't matter how much you feel incapable, doesn't matter how much you feel like a mess that can't achieve what you want, doesn't matter how much your brain's racing off in different directions. That's your starting point. And you are always able to make improvements. And peak performance will look different for every single person. And it will mean something different for every single person. But ultimately, the minute you learn how to harness your power and perform at your peak, you enable yourself to do more in less time, right? And this is a powerful equation, because when you can do more in less time, you can do more of the stuff that lights you up, fulfills you, gives you direction, gives you that sense of achievement. And that, I think, is one of the most critical things to enable people to feel good about themselves and to make a difference in the world too. So where is your starting base? What does peak performance look like? And how are you going to get there? But the second part of that is that when you're able to perform at your peak, even if you've only got an hour a day to work on something, you make that time count, which means you value your own energy and your time significantly more. And once you value that more, you spend it more wisely, so you achieve more. So these things all connect together in beautiful harmony. And once you start working on it, you're able to then massively, massively do things that you thought potentially were impossible before. It doesn't matter whether it's writing a book, starting a business, standing on a stage, whatever they might be. But in terms of actually doing those things, we all need support. And you know this, we need a tower of power. We need people around us who actually understand how we work and how our brains tick, that allow us to see things that we can't see for ourselves. And that is why I would say, if you've got big ambitions and you want to achieve and you want to perform at your peak, then I would love to speak to you, because that is what I do. I help people rewire their brains so that they can perform at their peak and achieve amazing things. And that, honestly, is life-changing. It's life-changing. So whether or not that looks like training to be a mindset mentor, whether it looks like coaching, whether it looks like speaking or workshops, I am happy to support people who have that drive to do things differently.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, the question comes about the energy world. Is there any energy things going on here that you use in your practice that maybe you even use in your personal life? I'm talking about modalities that we can't just see in the 3D world. Things like meditation is a really easy one, but there's many of them. I'm wondering if that plays a role.
Well, I protect my energy like a badass, right? And I do it because I've got quite a lot of demands at home. I have special needs child. There's lots going on. I have limited time to focus on my work. So I am all for your energy. You can't achieve if you don't have the energy to achieve to put into things, right? This is part of my talent book is helping people to understand how that equation works. So whatever it looks like for you, whatever lights you up, whatever makes you feel good about yourself, whatever brings you joy, whatever makes you laugh, whatever helps you connect with other people is powerful stuff. And I wouldn't say there's one modality I swear by, because I think every single person, that looks different. For me personally, there are several things that make a huge difference to my mindset and my life. The first one is nature and fresh air and being outside. I mean, to me, it's medicinal. It's totally medicinal. If I don't get outside, if I don't hear the birds sing, I'm going to be on a downer for the rest of the day. And I think a lot of people kind of underestimate the importance of that. It's been proven time and time again that even standing in greenery has an impact on your brain, listening to water, all of those things. So firstly, for me, nature, would encourage everyone to do more of that. But secondly, I think the biggest thing that makes a massive difference for me is movement. So I routinely train my body in terms of strength training because it has a significant proven impact on your mind as well. So it creates the connections, it strengthens BDNF, which is a part of the brain, is
Brain-derived neurotropic factor.
thank you. Yeah, it is exactly that. You see, I obviously didn't do my exercise today, did I? Because I just forgot that. But it's fundamental to brain function. So movement in general, if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling slow, if you're running out of ideas, move, because that physical connection between brain and body is so powerful and people underestimate it all the time. So movement, fresh air, greenery, I think are honestly just natural antidepressants, natural mood boosters, and they massively improve your focus. However, everyone's different, but that's what works for me.
Yeah, no, I'm with you 100%. Those are right at the top of my list. And if we're talking to women here, then something like body, little weights, exercise, all those things, right? You start not only BDNF, you get human growth hormone. And this is going to help you while you're sleeping to rest, repair. But especially women going through perimenopause, menopause, you need to get your muscles activated and starting to work. It's going to make that transition a little bit smoother.
Oh my God. I mean, yeah, that was what started my journey into weight training, actually, was hitting perimenopause. I was like, oh dear, things are not working how they used to. I need to make a change here. And it's been the biggest benefit. And the most beautiful thing is when you start doing things like that for yourself, it has a ricochet effect on all the other people around you. So my husband then started training, my kids started doing more exercise. So you bring about these beautiful positive changes just by doing something for you. And I think in terms of energy as well, realizing that is so fundamental because as women, we often give it all away. It leaks out everywhere to anyone who wants a piece of it. Protecting your own energy is the biggest gift you can give to the people around you as well, because it impacts how you show up and how you feel. So people get the best of you. And that's a positive thing we want more of, right?
Yeah, that's powerful. My final question is, how can people reach you?
People can reach me either by dropping me an email at nicole@theconfidencecraft.com, or they can reach me on my website, which is www.theconfidencecraft.com. Also on Insta, and I'm on Facebook. So for any women out there that really want to position themselves as a high achiever, who's performing at their peak, who wants all the knowledge and the inspiration to be able to do that, I also have a Facebook group called the High Achievers Hub for women. which you are very welcome to come and join. It's on Facebook. We have amazing guest experts. There's wonderful people in there. And obviously, you've got some access to me in there too. So I would love to invite you along, or I'd love to hear from you on email.
Amazing. Nicole, I'm so grateful for your time today. This was fun. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.